Is that music?
It's a good choice.
Hey, well played.
We got no ship. No crew. How are we gonna get out of this one?
We will find hope in the impossible.
Well, at least I won't die alone. Well, that's just typical.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Back to the Theater, a movie review podcast. My name is Peter Waters, and with me is...
Matthew or Matt Veal?
Which would you prefer?
I prefer Matt, Peter. It's your choice, though.
All right, I'll call you Matthew then.
All right, thank you.
So basically, if you don't know who we are, we're basically, we have no professional experience whatsoever. But that didn't stop us from wanting to do a podcast because we are both movie enthusiasts. Would you call yourself a movie enthusiast, Matt?
Enthusiast, lover, geek, whatever is appropriate.
Okay. So, yeah, we're basically two high school buddies who love going to the movie theaters. We're constantly finding ourselves back in the theater time and time again. So we share this passion, and we thought we would share it with whoever the hell wants to watch or listen to our show. And this is our second attempt at this, so hopefully it will go smoother than before.
And thank you for those who came back to listen to us.
Yes, and if you're tuning in for the first time, thank you for giving us a chance.
Giving us a shot.
Yeah. All right, so today's episode, last week we talked about Ghostbusters, and this week we will be discussing a movie that is a part of yet another beloved geek-friendly franchise, Justin Lin's Star Trek Beyond, which is the 13th film in the long-running science fiction franchise.
13. That's a little too much, isn't it?
I don't think so. I think they should just make them forever.
Oh, okay. That's a positive.
Yeah, just infinite, because there's infinite galaxies out there, so there can be infinite Star Trek adventures. Right. Anyway, so our format is basically going to be, we will start out giving you a quick background to give you a sense of where this movie fits within, geek culture in general. Then we are going to go into our general thoughts, just what we thought about the film in non-spoiler terms. So if you just want to know our opinion without being spoiled, you will be safe in our general thoughts section. And then we will go right into the film, dive head first into spoilers, the thick of it, with the spoiler section. So we have a little bit for everybody. Those who don't want to be spoiled, those who do. So
we'll remind you when it gets close to that time as well.
Yeah, we aren't going to hit you over the head with a spoiler. We are not that cruel. We are considerate podcasters.
If you guys want us to be that cruel, just give us a message and we will.
Yeah, if there's any, sadomasochistic podcast listeners out there, that's probably what they want. But hopefully we're not attracting too many of those.
I don't think we are, so I think we're okay.
Yeah, they don't provide analytics on that when, for the podcast. But anyway, our quick background. I'll try to make this as quick as possible. But if you have no idea what Star Trek is, Star Trek, I don't know how you wouldn't be, but it started in 1966. Gene Roddenberry's original Star Trek series hit the airwaves on NBC, and it basically followed the adventures of an intergalactic crew aboard the Starship Enterprise as they traversed the universe and, went on adventures, either helping other people or getting in intergalactic chess games with amorphous, colorful clouds. It was trippy. It's the 60s. Color television was brand new, so you get lots of trippy colors. And also, because it was the 60s, in addition to being this fun adventure, similar to like Flash Gordon, and all these adventure science fiction stories, it was also deeply had some of these deep, rich themes that showed the time it was in. So there's themes like racism and class warfare and imperialism, all within this sort of goofy science fiction show. It even had the first interracial kiss ever shown on television. So, if trivia night, there you go. That Star Wars.
I didn't know that until today. That's very interesting fact.
very, very interesting. And I said Star Wars accidentally, but Star Trek.
Yeah.
I will probably.
You guys know what we're talking about anyway.
You guys know what we're talking about. You guys are smart, and you're not sadomasochistic, hopefully. So yes, Star Trek is part of the DNA of American pop culture. Everyone knows who Spock is. Everyone knows who Captain Kirk is. A lot of people can sing the original Star Trek theme song, and I will not attempt that because I don't want to, blow out the microphone I bought for this thing. Okay. So basically, there's been many iterations of Star Trek and different crews and things over the years. And in 2009, J.J. Abrams rebooted the series into a big blockbuster hit with, he took the original series crew and updated it with recasting all the parts with basically hot young people and like Chris Pine, Zach Quinto, and Zoe Saldana, and made it less of a contemplative, deep in thought television series, and made it more of this action thrill ride like Star Wars, which of course JJ would go on to reboot Star Wars itself, so he has like one foot planted in each of these sacred geek science fiction franchises. But Star Trek Beyond is the third of this reboot series, and Abrams has passed the baton to Justin Lin, who himself is no stranger to rebooting franchises, because he rebooted the Fast and Furious franchise with Vin Diesel and all them, and he basically turned that franchise into what it is today, this mega hit that just keeps getting bigger and bigger somehow. So now he has hold of Star Trek, and maybe he can do the same for this beloved franchise. So, Matt, before I throw it to you, first I want to know, do you consider yourself a Trekkie, and where do you fall on the spectrum of Star Trek fan, if you are at all? Have you seen any of the movies, or haven't you? And or the shows or anything? What is your experience with Star Trek? And do you think Justin Lin, like he did with the Fast and Furious films, was he the right guy to bring new life, or at least different life, to this beloved Star Trek franchise? Go.
Alrighty. Well, I'm gonna make a lot of you angry that are very hardcore Trekkies, but I'm not a Trekkie myself. I've never seen any of the original movies. I never watched the original show. The only familiarity I have with the series is watching J.J. Abrams movies. And what I love about what J.J. did with it is, yeah, they may look like action thrill rides, but they brought more people into a culture that isn't necessarily, it's more exclusive. He made these two movies, Star Trek and Into Darkness, something everybody can enjoy, and you don't have to be exclusive about it. I know a lot of Trekkies weren't big on the changes he made, but for me, as a huge Star Wars fan, I enjoyed both those movies very much. I love what he did with these characters, and I feel that they are very fun, brisk, and entertaining movies all the way. And both those movies made my top tens their respective years. As for this one, I was a little worried because there was a lot of behind-the-scenes drama. As you mentioned earlier, J.J. Abrams decided to go direct episode 7 instead of doing this one, which left a lot of people concerned on who was going to direct next. And he originally passed the baton to the series co-writer Roberto Orci, who him and Alex Kurtzman wrote both Star Trek and Into Darkness, and had footprints in other nerd films such as The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which ultimately ruined their working relationship because of all the controversy that film had. So Roberto Orci was supposed to write and direct this one, but because the studio was not a fan of what the ultimate script turned out to be, he was subsequently fired and was replaced with Justin Lin, who caused a lot of controversy with fans who think Justin Lin is too action-oriented and not as laid back as the original series had. So I, on the other hand, like Justin Lin and like what he did with Fast and Furious. So I gave it a really solid chance.
So what did
Then,
so what did you think
I
of
w-
Star Trek then?
well, there are a few more concerns I had with this going in. One being Leonard Nimoy's passing. If for those who don't know, who haven't seen JJ's other movies, Leonard Nimoy makes an appearance as older Spock, and it pretty much introduces the plot point of each movie. With his passing, they had to rewrite a whole section of the script and make some changes because of that. And then the trailer was released last December, which was met with huge controversy because the studio basically edited it to make it look like Fast and Furious instead of Star Trek. A lot of fans were unhappy. The original cast, including George Takei and William Shatner, both commented saying that this isn't our series. Co-writers Simon Pegg and director Justin Lin both said that the studio messed up big time marketing this movie. And so now you're going to get here my viewpoint of the final product. While it's not my favorite in the series by any means, I do think Justin Lin did a pretty solid job of bringing the series to what JJ tried to do, which is make it universal. Like he has a great eye for action and visual effects. In my opinion, I think he's has a better eye for visual effects and action sequences than JJ does himself. And I liked the character moments that this one had, especially the banter with Bones and Spock. I like the new character Jayla, who's played by Kingsman in the Secret Service, is Sophia Botella. Pardon if I mispronounced her name. I think she stole the movie, and I really loved how her character played into all the events in the movie. I thought, as I said, the real reason they hired Justin Lin is for the action sequences, and they are really entertaining to watch. The first action scene in particular is really, really well done and very, very heart pounding all the way through. But at the same time, if you are a fan of JJ's movies, you're going to leave yourself with a lot of questions after this one. And it's the fault of writer Simon Pegg. Like, one example I had an issue with is Peter, do you remember Alice Eve's character in Into Darkness?
Barely. I barely remember those movies, but
Oh, but you remember Alice Eve is in it and kind of plays a major role.
all I remember is that she was like in her underpants.
Oh,
But
that
I don't
met with
remember
a lot of controversy.
I don't remember her character at all.
Well, the thing is, her character is the father. Well, her father is the leader of Starfleet, who gets murdered in the second movie, and then subsequently joins the team. And her last line specifically says, "It's nice to be part of a family." Well, it's obvious Simon Pegg didn't feel that way because not only is she not in this movie, she's not brought up at all. Like you kind of question yourself, like, what happened to her? Like, why didn't they bring her back? Why isn't she not here? Like, that's a huge plot hole between the two movies, in my opinion. And if they make a fourth one, they need to have some explanation of that, because one line of dialogue could have saved that plot hole entirely. But Simon Pegg focused too much on the fanboy moments of the series, and as a result, was not didn't focus on the bigger picture, and that was part of one of the problems I had with it. Another problem I had with was Idris Elba's villain. I liked his performance. I thought the design of him was fantastic, but ultimately, what really hurt it is there's a twist with him later on, which I'm not going to talk about right now, that's not entirely explained, and that's another unanswered question I had with it. But all in all, I was surprised how well Justin Linwood did with this. It was respectfully done. I think the Trekkies are going to enjoy this more than the Abrams fans, personally. And it's entertaining all the way through. I was never bored. I thought the character moments were tastefully done. I thought Leonard Nimoy's tribute was really, really touching, personally. I almost cried a few times. And all in all, I was pleasantly surprised with it, even though it's not as good as Into Darkness or JJ's original Star Trek film. I think if they're going to do a fourth one, they should bring JJ back to direct since he has a lot of free time on his hands. But Justin Lin
I
did
don't
do
know
a
if,
good.
I don't know if JJ has a lot of free time.
Well, he's not directing Star Wars anymore, so I think
Well,
he has more free time than he did then.
I don't know, but
But I am going to say this. I think Justin Lin reinvigorated a franchise much better than Colin Trevorrow did last year with Jurassic World. And I think Justin Lin should ultimately direct episode 9 instead of him. Like the set design, the visual effects, the action scenes, and the character moments all combined make him a much better candidate than Trevorrow did for Jurassic World. That's just my 2 cents, though.
okay. I guess. All right. So for me, I guess, I was not really a huge fan of the Abrams films. I'm not a Trekkie by any means, but I do have sort of this quirky special place in my heart, I guess, for the original series. Sort of the 60s colorful kitschy world of the series, very much in the same spirit as the original Batman movie or Batman series with Adam West. I enjoy that in its campy way, and I mostly am attached to that original crew's characters. So I think what was missing from JJ's reboot cast is that they just felt too much like, I don't know, like the hot young actor versions of them. They didn't feel like real people. They just felt like, hollow versions of their original characters, to me anyway. So that's why I kind of liked this movie better than the J.J. Abrams movies overall. I thought this Star Trek Beyond felt a lot more like the original series than the Abrams films. For better or worse, it basically felt like an extended episode of the original TV show, stretched to like however long this was, 2 hours or whatever.
Yeah, it was exactly 2 hours.
Yeah. So I do think that is a problem. I think it takes a story that really is meant, I feel like it would be fit more comfortably within an hour-long television program and stretches it out way too long. I think it, and the padding is filled out with, in my opinion, not that great action, but I'll get to that later. I do think the characters are well handled in this. I personally think Simon Pegg did do a good job with the script. I think the sort of family dynamic between the cast members is well handled, and
I agree with you there. I definitely agree with you there, and I have to comment saying that I think the family dynamic here is much better handled than what Lynn did with Fast and Furious.
But yeah, I was just gonna say that Fast and Furious. He's sort of how Lynn was able to transform that series is by focusing on this group dynamic, this family dynamic, and I think he also does a good job with that same sort of spirit of this is a real team, with this Star Trek film. So I did like that, so all the camaraderie between the characters, especially between Spock and McCoy, and Scotty and the new character Jayla. Their banter between each other was like hilarious and touching and very human, a level of humanity that I didn't really feel like I got from the Abrams films. So that was good. There's some legitimately funny lines in there. I really liked the practical special effects in the film as well.
Me too.
We're bombarded with CGI stuff all the time, and especially after Ghostbusters, the final act of Ghostbusters is just like this mess of CGI. And in this movie there is a lot of CG, but whenever they travel to like the star base or wherever they go, the like port, and all around, and Idris Elba's villain character, they all have practical special effects, really well
and really
done.
cool designs too.
Yeah, very well designed. But that being said, I also thought the CG visual effects were also really well handled in this film. They didn't feel cheap or fake or anything. I liked the visual style and the visual effects of this a lot, and I think that sort of is carried over from Justin Lin's. He directed 3 or 4 Fast and Furious films, and I think he knows how to handle these sort of giant visual set pieces decently well.
He never made it like overload at the same time.
Maybe. Well, that kind of brings me to what didn't work for me. Surprisingly, even though I like the visual nature of the film, like how it looked in general, I really didn't care for most of the action in this movie, which is kind of surprising to me. Considering Justin Lin's background, I thought a lot of the action scenes went on for way too long. They overstayed their welcome most of the time. And they did, and even though when they did focus on the characters, I loved it, they didn't focus on the characters enough. And there's, especially at the beginning, we'll go over this in spoilers more, but there's an opening action scene that it starts out okay, but then it just goes on and on and on. And the camera is kind of shaky at times, that you can't really tell you can't tell the geography of the situation very well. And it just seems like the movie focuses on these things much more than the characters. And I don't understand why those responsible don't really go out of their way to, like in the old Star Trek films and television show, the action was secondary to the sort of banter between characters on the ship. And in this reboot series, it just seems like they're catering to the masses and making it, just huge action scenes that, you don't have to pay attention at all to them. And it just seems like they're not taking advantage of these wonderful characters that they have set up, and do have some moments in the film, but I want it to be the whole film as the characters instead of just fleeting moments. I guess that's it. I thought it was just kind of a bland science fiction film. I thought the story was just very sort of blah. The villain didn't really have clear motives in what he was doing.
I agree with you there.
But despite that, I thought Simon Pegg's script had a sense of respect for the overall series, and I loved the sort of banter between the characters, especially between Spock and Bones. I think that's their MVP of this movie. They're like they're like an intergalactic odd couple, basically. And I want to see a movie with just them two the whole movie. That would be.
I'd be
great.
okay with that. They're both very talented actors, and they both bring a lot to the characters. They're both exact opposites from one another, and their banter was probably the highlight of the movie for me as well, and I agree with that.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite part of the original series as well, so I'm glad that carried over.
Yep, because in the past two movies, from what I remember, they really didn't have a lot of scenes together at all. It was more Kirk and Bones going at it with one another.
Yeah, and Kirk and Spock as well.
Yeah, but I felt it with Kirk and Spock. Kirk and Bones was fine, but not as good as what these two did together. Justin Lin knew how to handle those two really well, I thought.
Yeah. So that's really all I have to say about the movie in general. Yeah. So, do you have any other thoughts or anything?
Well, I want to dedicate this podcast. I know this is kind of cheesy, but I want to dedicate this podcast to Anton Yelchin, who unfortunately passed away a month before this movie was released. Even though, unfortunately, his character doesn't do a lot in this movie, he owned every scene he was in.
Yeah. Just very tragic what happened to him. He was only 29 years old, I think.
No, he's 27. He's
27.
Another member of the club.
Wow. Yeah. Way too young. And a very bizarre freak accident death of a car
falling over on him.
Yeah, falling over on him. Very tragic. So, yeah, I don't think he really does anything special in this movie, but
no, he doesn't, sadly.
Every time he was on screen, I just was reminded that we lost a really
good talent.
A very promising actor. It just seemed like he was poised to be one of the big actors that we would know going forward. And
I don't know if you knew this, Peter, but if he didn't pass, he was actually going to meet a bunch of actors for his directorial debut.
Oh, that's, yeah. I mean, this kid was definitely going places, I think. And it's too bad. I always thought that he would make a perfect Spider-Man. I've always thought that.
I agree. He was considered for the role twice.
Yeah. It's just really horrible news, and unfortunately, every time he popped up on screen, I couldn't help but think of that tragedy in this sort of
Me
light and
neither.
bubbly movie. So, and also Leonard Nimoy passed away, which is unfortunate as well.
And I think his tribute that it becomes kind of a subplot in the movie, but it's very, very respectfully handled.
Yeah. So, yeah, the passing of a legend and maybe a legend in the making. It's really horrible. So, on that note, Matt, what would you give this out of 5?
Well, on a lighter subject, I had fun with this movie, as I mentioned, and I'm not as big of a Trekkie as you are, even though you're not that big of a Trekkie either. But I think it's my least favorite of the three, but I still had a lot of fun with this movie. I feel compared to the other two, well, Abrams made it similar to the original Star Wars trilogy, that the first Star Trek he made was very comparable to the first Star Wars. The second one was very comparable to The Empire Strikes Back, which are both great sequels. This one is like Return of the Jedi, which is the weakest of the three, but still better than half of what Hollywood releases. I had fun with it. There are major problems with it, but in that, I had a good time. I give it a 4 clean-ons out of 5. What about you, Peter?
Yeah, I didn't like it that much. I give it 3 out of 5. Whatever. Whatever alien out of 5. I didn't think it was. I just thought it was bland and kind of boring. The story was just, just very generic. The only thing really keeping my interest were the few and fleeting character interactions between these characters we've grown to love over the years. But other than that, it's really nothing special. And I honestly would, unless you really love Star Trek, I would recommend not seeing this movie in the theater or waiting for it.
Fair enough.
But that's just me. All right, so any last words before we go into spoilers?
No, just a warning. If you have not seen this movie and are planning to, I would end listening from here. But if you've seen the movie, feel free to continue.
Yes, hit that pause button before we ruin your life with a spoiler right now.
Let's hope this doesn't get messy.
Okay. So, before we actually get into the plot of the film, I just wanted to ask, did you see the introduction from Simon Pegg where
Yes.
he basically said, thank you for seeing this film. We worked hard on it and blah, blah, blah. And he gave the, live long and prosper hand sign. What do you think of that? And it seems like a growing trend. I saw this happen before X-Men Apocalypse, this sort of a cast member thanking the viewers for seeing it in the theater. What do you...
This is actually something AMC is starting to do with a lot of their major movies. I don't know if you saw Finding Dory at an AMC, but they had Andrew Stanton come in and say thank you for watching the movie, essentially.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
So this is essentially an AMC thing that they're doing.
Oh. Yeah.
But I do have an interesting experience about regarding my viewing of the film. I saw it in 3D at the same theater you did, and while I was enjoying the movie, thought, "Oh, this is fun." There are these two kids that threw candy at the back of my head.
Oh my.
It was very, very disrespectful. They were loud beforehand and being rude and all that, which at first was funny, but then that happened and I was not happy.
Do you know what type of candy it was?
No, it was probably a bit of chocolate or something.
Oh.
Probably a bunch of crunch is my guess.
Bunch of Crunch. I mean, because certain candies have different densities. I'm sure, Bunch of Crunch probably does more damage than, say, Twizzlers or something like that.
Or Reese's Pieces, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Those Reese's Pieces, they'll do serious damage.
Especially if you're allergic to peanuts.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it was not a good experience, but I did complain to the manager, and he did give me a few free passes, so I can't really complain in the end.
No. You didn't catch the children, though.
Oh, unfortunately, I did not, but I would have told him.
You would have sent them to juvie.
No, I'm not that extreme. I just would have given him a nice talking to about handling candy with strangers. That's what my discussion would have been.
Matt, you're doing a public service for us all. Anyway, so on to the actual film. It starts out with a cold open that is very similar to the openings to the other films in the Abrams Star Trek series. Basically, Captain Kirk is in a kind of courtroom, and he's being leered over by a bunch of very ugly-looking aliens. And he is sort of the middleman in this conflict between these two alien races. And he's presenting this artifact that basically looks like some kind of a box. And he's presenting it to this alien race, as a peace treaty on behalf of these other aliens. However, these ugly aliens take it the wrong way. They do not understand that it's for a peace treaty, and they believe it's a weapon of some kind.
It actually is a weapon.
It actually does turn out to be
weapon.
a weapon. But within the context of this scene, it's just meant as this peace offering, and it's kind of played off as a joke that they aren't understanding what's going on. But anyway, these creatures look large and big and scary, and they basically roll down the sides of this giant courtroom wall, very similarly to like Sonic the Hedgehog, and roll up to Kirk to get all up in his face, thinking it, and we think it's going to be this giant action scene, and he turns out to be just the size of like a house cat,
a hamster.
A hamster, and it's I thought it was funny, and
I thought it was funny too,
and
I thought it was a really unexpectedly funny scene.
Yeah, because that one little guy comes out, and it's like, oh, what damage is he going to do? But they come out in droves, and they have strength in numbers, which is a theme of this film, by the way.
Yes, it is.
The bundle of sticks is tougher than the single stick or whatever.
Exactly.
So the strength in numbers, and then, of course, I thought it was kind of wrapped up a little quickly, though, with...
it was.
He just says, please beam me up, and he's beamed up. He doesn't even really fight them or do anything.
I agree it was handled way too quickly, especially given how the first one, the second one in particular, had a really extended action scene that I really enjoyed, with them getting chased in the jungle and
if I remember
involving lava.
If I remember that right, it was kind of like modeled off like an Indiana Jones type.
Yes,
opening.
I agree.
So yeah, this one was a little anticlimactic, but I did like the bit of humor they put at the beginning anyway.
Yeah, I agree.
So then immediately after that opening, it's revealed that Kirk is becoming a little jaded about his position as captain of the Enterprise. And he has this voiceover where he's basically saying, and this is kind of knowing to people who know the TV show, he's basically saying, oh, like, my life is just a series of episodes or something like that.
It was episodic, and I felt that was a little meta line that Simon Pegg did. That was completely intentional.
Yeah, so Kirk is jaded, and it's kind of this meta commentary on the film itself, because Kirk asks himself, what's the point? If the universe is infinite and these adventures will never end, what's the point of even doing this anymore? He'll never save everybody on the planet, in the galaxy, the universe, etc. So he's having this existential crisis, essentially. And after that, him and Bones, Kirk and Bones, also known as Dr. Hank McCoy, he's the doctor on board, they share a bottle of scotch that they lifted out of Chekhov's locker because it is Kirk's birthday today. But he sort of celebrates it nonchalantly because it happens to be the same day his father died. And I don't remember if his father was in the first film.
Yes, we do. He's played by Chris Hemsworth, nonetheless, who was in Ghostbusters last week.
Oh, so there we go. It's Kevin from Ghostbusters.
Yes. Yep, and that's, again, a very long action scene that JJ knew how to handle and cut it at the right time.
Oh, so Chris Hemsworth was in an action scene in the first movie.
Yes, he played George Kirk. This is before he was Thor, though. Nobody knew him then.
Oh, so that's probably why I don't remember. But anyway, they share a scotch, and basically Kirk shares with him in this sort of bro-to-bro moment. He discusses his father and basically how this particular birthday, he'll be a year older than how old his father was when he died. So it brings all these sort of personal problems to the surface.
Yeah.
Matt, what did you think of Kirk's existential crisis in these scenes? Did you think it was handled well?
It wasn't. No, it wasn't, because this was the only mention of it really at all, in my opinion. Like, he has this nice moment with McCoy, or Bones, as I called him earlier, and then really nothing else is mentioned of this crisis at all, except that he's going for a job, and then as the film goes on, he has a change of heart. But really, it's not explored at all. And I felt that this was the beginning of a subplot that should have just been cut out.
I actually think I disagree on that point. I thought that was one of the few things in the movie I actually had to hold on to, even though it wasn't really brought up during the actual film that much because it's all action scenes, basically. I think what makes it better is that Kirk and Spock have these parallel doubts about continuing their work on the Enterprise. Yes. Because Spock, he eventually learns that, and I don't understand the logic of this whatsoever, but basically Leonard Nimoy's Spock, like the original series Spock, lives within the same universe as, fresh, hot, and young Spock, the Zachary Quinto Spock, because of some time travel element that was introduced in one of the earlier films. I don't know the logic of this. Maybe you can explain it a little bit better.
Sure.
But basically, he's informed. Fresh, hot, and young Spock is informed that old Spock dies. And now he is, because he has Vulcan pride, he wants to take over for him as the ambassador of Vulcan. And at the same time, Kirk no longer wants to, be the captain of the Enterprise. He wants more of this, office-type admiral position. And Spock wants to be ambassador for the Vulcans at the same time. So they're having these, parallel journeys, not wanting to continue their adventures. But, Matt, of course, us in the audience doesn't want this to happen. We want the adventures to continue forever. So,
and honestly, I'm going to say that I do like that they don't really tell each other about this at all. I thought that
they almost do in the elevator.
Yeah, they do, but they decided to hold off on it. I thought that added a little bit of emotional weight for the movie for me.
Yeah, because at the very end, then they come together and realize, or Kirk has a line where after he learns that he won't be able to fly anymore, he says, "Oh, what's the fun in that?" If he takes up his job. So he wants to continue. He basically wants to continue as captain of the Enterprise.
He realizes that not only he loves flying, but he loves flying with his team and his really good friend Spock, who their friendship blossoms over the 3 movies, just like Han's and Luke's.
Yeah, and you thought that didn't work?
No, I thought that worked. I thought that worked well. I didn't think Kirk's existential crisis worked. But the two of them's parallel doubts about the future did work.
Well, I thought the two ideas between Spock and Kirk were connected, so it worked for me anyway. I don't know. But anyway, after we see that, we see that the crew is replenishing their supplies at some sort of star base. My apologies, I don't remember the exact names of them.
I forget the name as well.
I'm sure nerds are raising their fists in anger right now.
Don't hate us for Yorktown. That's what it was called, Peter.
So basically, during the scene at the starbase, we learn that Spock and Uhura are going through sort of a rough patch in their relationship, and of course, Spock, probably not the best person to enter a relationship with because he, not really emotional at all.
He's logical.
Yeah, he's logical. That's basically what his character is, and so they're going through a rough patch. And this is also when Spock is informed that his older self is dead, the logic of which is crazy to me. I don't understand it, but, whatever.
I can't explain it either.
Yeah, I think that was JJ just trying to come up with this crazy backwards logic of just to get a cameo from Leonard Nimoy in the first movie. But
yeah.
Also during the scene, we get a bombshell. We find out that Sulu is gay. Yeah, through basically this 1-second interaction where he semi-hugs another man. But there's a lot of controversy surrounding this 1-second interaction. I don't know what you thought about it.
Well, I saw a documentary a few weeks ago called To Be Decay, which is about George Takei's life, and who played Sulu in the original series. I felt I have nothing but respect for the man because of all he went through. He hid his sexuality from Hollywood for years, and also went through Japanese internment camps and equal rights and human rights. I have nothing but respect for him for all that we did. And I felt Simon Pegg and Doug John, the 2 writers, did a very nice job handling and having a nice little tribute for George Takei. and I thought that scene was very well handled. And I'm very disappointed personally that George Takei was not a fan that they did that to him.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what to think of it. It's just such a nothing thing in the movie. I don't see why it's even
And
controversial.
it's at the same time, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Like that's the way I viewed it. That's why I didn't mind it. Like I didn't think. Oh, I don't understand why people are up in arms on it. It shouldn't be a big deal. It's who he is. It's who they envision him to be, which is fine.
Well, I'm pretty sure in the original series he was straight. I think he had like a family in the original series, but I don't exactly
know.
I don't exactly remember. But it's such a small moment in this movie. It's not even worth,
For me though, that added a lot of emotional weight and actually made me very invested in the final action scene.
Really? It's just
It did.
just because. So I think it's just lazy. It's like just the fact that he has a family. That's all that they had to. That's literally the only thing we learn about Sulu in this whole film. He really doesn't do anything interesting
No,
at
he
all
doesn't.
in the whole movie.
No, he's a prisoner a majority of the movie.
Yeah, he doesn't really do anything the whole movie. So I thought, Sulu's probably the least realized out of all the main characters of the central main group. But now we actually get on to the main story of the film. It takes this long to get to the main story, but eventually the team gets a distress signal that is picked up from an alien named Kalara, who, I don't know about you, Matt. I think it's hard. I think the elephant in the room is that this alien has ears that unmistakably looks like female genitalia. I don't know what you thought.
I didn't think that, but it was a very intricate design.
I don't know how you could not think that, but whatever. I mean, I could not think that. She just had ears that looked like, a Georgia O'Keeffe painting. But anyway, she sends a distress signal. She claims to be the member of a crew whose ship needs rescuing. And what do you know? The heroes aboard the Enterprise go and try to save her. But they are en route. They're basically attacked by a massive cluster of ships that are referred to as the Bees, because they look like a swarm of bees.
Yes.
I thought it looked pretty cool, but not cool. Maybe not cool enough for me. A little bit. I don't know. It's just kind of generic. These, drones. We've seen so many science fiction movies recently with this sort of drone. Like Independence Day 2. We just saw the similar thing. Like there's the main ship, and then there's all the little ships flying around.
Right.
Even though they looked cool, it's just not imaginative. I think. I don't know.
But I liked the scene itself, though. I thought there was a lot of good tension there, and it's with the fact that the family gets separated from one another. It had a lot of great ideas.
This scene is dragged out for so long. This attack
I didn't
scene,
think so.
I thought it went on for way too long, because there's multiple layers to it. The ship is attacked. The Enterprise is attacked piece by piece, and little bits and pieces of it get cut off, basically. First, their warp drives get cut off, so they can't escape the swarm. And then, basically, the main ship shoves, Doc Ock arms, like Dr. Octopus arms, into the hull of the Enterprise, and they open up, and that's how, the soldiers invade. I thought that was kind of cool, how they did that, but their warp drive is destroyed, so they can't escape, and they start, shooting. Their weapons are too weak to do damage, and this is when we meet the main villain of the film, Krull, who I kept hearing as Krull, that crappy 80s fantasy movie, but Krull is played by Idris Elba, who's unrecognizable at first, under layers of makeup.
Right.
And he comes aboard the ship looking for that artifact that we saw in the beginning of the film. That was the cause for the tuffle with the tiny aliens, this thing that may or may not be a weapon. But it's obviously a weapon because the evil-looking guy wants it, so this is basically the MacGuffin of the film. The thing that everyone's after. We don't really know what it is. All that matters is that the bad guys want it, the good guys have it, and they're willing to do anything to get their hands on it, basically.
Right.
But this scene goes on way too long. I mean, in concept, it sounds like this fun, cool action scene. I just thought it went on for way too long.
I didn't think so at all. I felt each scene worked together really well when it happened, and as I said, the emotional payoff worked really well there too. I didn't think it dragged on at all. I thought it was a very well done scene. one of the better scenes in the movie.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to agree to disagree on that one.
Yeah, so we do.
But at the end of the scene, this very long scene that wasn't very good at all, just kidding, but the crew eventually gets split up. Some of them take the pods down to the surface of a nearby planet, and some of them crash land in the saucer of the Enterprise. It's the sort of, the big disc of the Enterprise that is the only thing that's really left after the swarm attacks them. And they all separate, and this turns into what I call a Scooby-Doo style team split up. Where,
I thought of that too.
Yeah, so basically they're all split up into separate groups, and they all converge towards the end of the film. So the groups here are Kirk, Chekhov, and the vulva-shaped head Kalara are one group. Another group is Spock and Bones. Of course, they're hilarious together. One's very serious, one's irked by him being serious. And then there's Sulu and Uhura, who are like the least interesting of the group, definitely. And
their scenes were not that great.
Yeah, they don't really have anything to do. They just exist. They have no characteristics.
They're the damsels in distress, if you will.
Yeah, So,
and they don't do anything. I felt Jane and Tarzan, and this is a huge over-exaggeration, I felt her scenes were at least a little more interesting than what was brought here.
Yeah.
And I know that's an over-exaggeration because I wasn't a fan of that movie at all.
I don't know. But my favorite team, though, the Shaggy and Scooby of the group, if you will, the ones you actually want to watch. Scotty lands by himself at first, but then he is crowded by a bunch of drones, like the drone soldiers. But what saves Scotty, who's played by Simon Pegg, who wrote the screenplay as well, is a new character named Jayla, who was my favorite character in the whole movie.
Mine too. And
she basically saves him using this very cool device that makes her split or multiply her body, so there's like 5 of her fighting at once.
And I don't know if you knew this, Peter, but Simon Pegg actually was inspired by Jennifer Lawrence's character in Winter's Bone. That her name was originally jokingly Jennifer Lawrence, but he shortened it to Jayla.
Yeah, I did know that story, but I don't know how this character relates to that character in Winter's Bone at all.
More like Katniss Everdeen in my eyes.
I felt that she was more like the character. She actually reminded me somewhat of the character, the native blue thing from Avatar, because she's like the native who doesn't know all the customs. She's kind of like, she's not with it, but she learns like culture and things as she goes along.
But the difference between Zoe Saldana and Jayla, which I found refreshing, as I mentioned last week, there's never a love triangle or anything with Jayla.
She's just sort of this badass warrior. And it also bears, saying that she is not a human. She is like a alien type creature thing with white skin and like this tattooed design. So I don't even know.
I love the design of her too.
Yeah, I really liked her design. So I don't think there could be, a relationship angle there anyway, because, I don't know exactly how these things work out from like a species perspective.
If anything, it's just a new member of the family.
Yeah, she's just a badass. That's what her character is, a badass. But she has this sort of personality where she doesn't really understand what she's a little slow to understand certain customs. Like, she can't understand first and last names, that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah, she says, like, James T. or something like that. Like, she thinks that's his full first name, James T. Instead of James, it's James T., like his middle initial. I don't know. It works better in the movie than how I'm explaining it, but she definitely has the most life out of any of the characters.
Oh, I think they should do a solo movie on her, personally. I would love to see that.
And another gag is that throughout the film, she likes to put on music. And I had no idea this would pay off, but her love of music pays off eventually.
Oh, I know what you're talking about, and I was going to say the trailer editors messed up big time with that.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, we'll get to that later. But after she saves Scotty, she recruits him to rebuild her home, which is actually a crashed starship and a very early version of the Enterprise, the USS Franklin. And she lives there, and in return for his helping her rebuild the ship, she'll help him find his missing crew. And so that's where they are. And then we cut to Spock and Bones, who have crashed together. They're sort of the odd couple in this movie. And Spock has a chunk of metal stuck in his abdomen. And they have a lot of witty banter. And, like, one of my favorite lines is, I don't know. I'm going to curse once, Matt. I hope that's safe. But I'm quoting the film. He basically, in response to something that Spock says, Bones says, "Oh, that's horseshit." And then
that's very funny.
And then Spock responds, "I don't see how excrement of any kind plays a part in this matter." I think that line alone encapsulates their entire relationship in a nutshell. So I really like that.
I agree. I loved the writing in that scene in particular.
Yeah, and then after they do that, they actually Spock is too damaged, too injured to search around for anybody. So they sit down and they have a really good bro to bro talk. I guess Bones is who you go to if you want to have a real bro to bro talk.
Well, he's the doctor, Peter.
Yeah, he's the doctor, so he'll listen to you when you're having problems. And there is a quote in this movie that is definitely classic Star Trek quote, and it resonated with me a lot. Spock says, "Fear of death is illogical," and because Bones is scared of what's going to happen, and Spock, of course, he's half human, half Vulcan. He's also scared, and he doesn't want to be because a Vulcan is proud of their non-human, non-emotions. So he says, "But fear of death is illogical," and then Bones replies, "Fear of death is what keeps us alive." So I don't know. I just thought little moments like that.
I loved that scene too. I love that line because, as I said earlier, it was anytime Leonard Nimoy is brought up, and this is one of those scenes because he's very upset and grieving the loss of older Spock.
Yes.
And I thought that was very tastefully done, and in some respects, a wink to all the cast members that were grieving for Leonard Nimoy when he passed.
Yeah. I don't think it's as much a wink as an obvious glaring alarm, but I still thought it was well handled.
Yes.
And then Chekhov, Kirk, and Kalara are also separated. And Kirk confronts Kalara, claiming that she had to have known about what was attacking them because she had originally sent that distress signal. And she admits that she did know, but she, says that she was under threat. Her people were under threat, so she had to and everything. But, even the old guy sitting next to me in the theater said, "I don't know about this." So, yeah, she definitely has... threat written all over her.
That was probably... This is just the beginning of one of my bigger problems with the movie that is extremely, extremely predictable.
Yeah. The old guy sitting next to me, when it's revealed, he said, "Oh, I knew she was trouble." So, yeah. So if the old guy sitting next to me knew, then everybody would know.
It's a very simple movie. Like, it has no real twist or anything.
Yeah, I mean, any idiot off the street will be able to tell what's happening in this movie.
Right.
But anyway, it was revealed that Kalara was working for Krall the whole time, so she kind of lied about that. And she's looking for the artifact. That whole team, Kirk, Chekhov, and Kalara, are in the sort of burning husk of the Enterprise disk, looking for the artifact, but they don't actually find the artifact there. Where is it? Well, we have to travel to this base camp where Krall and his cronies have set up. It's basically a POW camp where Uhura and Sulu and the rest of the survivors are located. And the artifact is located in the back of a woman's head that opens up basically like the alien creature, the chestburster creature in the Alien films. I thought that was kind of strange, but...
It was. I'm not disagreeing with you there.
Yeah.
I was like, really? Like, that's kind of stupid.
I thought it looked kind of cool, but...
It was cool looking, but at the same time, I'm like, that's really the best place you can think of.
That's the best hiding place, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, I guess Krall wouldn't think to look in the back of somebody's head for the device.
No.
So I guess that is kind of a clever hiding place, but...
I'll give you that.
It was kind of... I don't know. It's just so bizarre that was even an idea that exists in this world. because we never see that character before. It's not like we see her do that and then it's paid. It's like she exists just to hide it in the back of her head, and that character dies immediately afterwards. And even though she tells him where it was, he's not very nice about it. He murders her, even though she hands over this artifact to him under threat. He murders her anyway, instead of being merciful, which I thought was a real jerk thing to do.
Well, that's a villain for you.
Yeah, I guess. But I thought he should have killed Uhura instead, who all during this murder, she's just watching in horror, and she should have been murdered logically, but what are you gonna do? Her murder scene, basically, Idris Elba brings the chest-burster head-looking woman into this chamber where the artifact is, and he locks her inside, and he turns it on, and she disintegrates, and her life force is then sucked into the Idris Elba freaky alien character, and it slowly turns Elba more into human form than alien. So it's sort of, he just sucks the life out of these people and to more and more turn into his former self.
And this is where I'm gonna chip in. That, really, what? It's never really explained why he turns into a human or how he got to that form. I felt that was a really unanswered question. I thought it was kind of dumb, honestly.
None of this is really explained. I thought it was dumb as well. We do get little flashbacks. We get a very minimal amount of his backstory. We actually learn that this character was on the ship for the USS Franklin, which is the old ship. Yeah, Jayla's home, and he just was disgruntled because he crash landed the ship, and no one went out to look for him and his crew. So his answer is to kill everyone, apparently,
and turn into some giant white gray alien with no explanation at all.
Yeah, and then he turns back to his human form. None of it really makes sense at all.
It didn't. Absolutely didn't. I thought it was really, really poorly written.
Yeah, it is poorly. It's poorly done. That's the worst part of the movie, definitely.
Agreed.
So his plan makes no sense. But continuing on. Eventually, Kirk and Chekhov run into one of J-Law's traps. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I think the other alien, who was the traitor, she dies.
Yeah, she dies at that scene.
Yeah, she dies earlier. So now Kirk and Chekhov are running by themselves. They run into one of Jayla's traps, and they're kind of encased in crystal. But once Jayla realizes they're friends of Scotty's, they're all just besties from then on. And they also beam up Spock and Bones as well. In a very funny scene, I thought, where they're about to be captured by the drones, and then he says, Bones says, well, at least we have each other or something. And then Spock is warped up to the ship, and then he's left alone. But then he's also warped up, but it was that one moment of he's left alone again. Yeah. So that was kind of funny. And then
I thought it was too.
Yeah, so basically at this point, almost the entire team is together, except for Sulu and Uhura, who are in the sort of POW camp. And so this team, they track the signal that Uhura's necklace is giving off that Spock gave her. It's actually funny because there's a line like, "Oh, you track your girlfriend" or something like that.
It's creepy.
Yeah, Spock is basically a stalker who tracks his girlfriend the whole time because he didn't know that she'd be captured later in the movie, so he just gave her the tracker as like a birthday present without telling her what it was. So that's kind of creepy of Spock.
I don't know. The filmmakers thought that through, of it being a little creepy.
Yeah, I think they did because that's where that joke plays. I don't think they realized how weird it might come across that Spock would do that, but I don't know. It didn't bother. You know what?
It was a funny scene still.
Honestly, the joke was worth the creepiness.
Exactly.
So whatever. So they track them, but they can't warp them up for whatever reason. So randomly Kirk, goes out on a motorcycle, which comes out of nowhere, to save the day. He creates a distraction on a motorcycle. J-Law Jayla or whatever, randomly beats up on this other guy while everybody else tries to get their crew back from the POW camp. I don't know what a motorcycle is doing on a spaceship. It makes no sense why there is a motorcycle. I felt like it was clearly just an excuse for Justin Lin to have some sort of vehicular action scene because that's what he's known for in the Fast and Furious movies.
Handled personally because it harkens back to the former Kirk before he joined Starfleet, where he was the motorcycle guy on Earth, being beat up at bars, but he loved riding motorcycles and which drove his love to love riding the Starship. But
that's true. But why would you have a motorcycle on a starship?
I felt it was a little too convenient as well. But I honestly had a lot of fun with that scene.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was fun, but just the logic of it, it just enforced like, okay, this is just a dumb popcorn movie. You're not supposed to think about it at all. You know, kind of like the Fast and Furious movies. I feel like that's where Justin Lin, he's not known for making movies that are like intellectually stimulating in a Star Trek fashion. It's just like Kirk's on a motorcycle, even though it's, there you go. Kirk's on a motorcycle.
It's not like Michael Bay.
No, it's Michael Bay is something else entirely. Anyway, so they get the motorcycle and they escape. Everyone escapes. In the starship, they fly away. But Krull has the weapon still, and they fly after them. As the USS Enterprise escapes back to their starbase, Krull and his B army also go there, and they want to kill everyone for no discernible reason, just because that's what we need for a movie. In order to stop them, their first plan of attack, the Enterprise's first plan of attack to go against Krull and his goons, is one of the stupidest things I've ever seen, and I think it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be a rah-rah moment, I think, but it was just it was really completely stupid to me. Is to destroy the ships, they don't use their lasers, they don't use some sort of cool weapon. They use the power of J-Law's stereo system. They channel the frequencies somehow to destroy their ships when they blast the Beastie Boys' Sabotage. And so that's what happens. They just fly around, they blast the music, and all the ships blow up. And
we're going to disagree on this big time.
It was like... It was so stupid, and this choice of music, I thought, didn't fit at all. I just didn't like it at all.
Oh, no. Here's the thing. They sabotaged the system by playing Sabotage. I think...
Well, yeah, but I just thought it was so corny. I thought it was so funny.
It is corny.
And that
but
song...
here's the thing. So is the original series.
But that song is like the most overplayed, like... I don't think it was going for corniness, though. It wasn't. I think the original.
I felt it was.
The original series kind of knew what it was a little bit. I mean, they knew that their budgets were big. This is meant to be. I think they want this to be very similar in tone to the scene in like Kick-Ass when Hit Girl is killing all those people to the goofy music or
with
something
bad
like that.
Reputation.
Yeah, like they want this sort of rah-rah, wow, this is so badass. I just thought it was like real, like that choice of music. It's so like that song is so overused in like advertisements and like the radio and things. I just thought it was an uninspired choice of song. I think or like James Gunn in Guardians of the Galaxy had like this ironic soundtrack, and it really fit with the tone of it. I think it would have been way funnier if they had chosen a song that was almost like more pleasant and less of like this badass song like Sabotage. Like if they picked like Frank Sinatra or something like chill while they're murdering people, I think it would have been funny and exciting and different. But
and again, Peter, as I mentioned earlier with the motorcycle scene, this also harkens back to the first movie because he was playing sabotage on his motorcycle.
I know, and it was
right
dumb
around
then too. It's all
I liked it. I thought it was a funny scene, a very purposely corny scene.
I didn't think it was purposely corny. I think it was trying to be really badass. I think that's what they were trying to get, and it came off as really just cheesy in a bad way to me. But whatever. We're different people. We can have different opinions.
I guess so. I guess it's logical too.
That is very logical. Spock would approve.
Yes, he would. This podcast is approved by Spock.
Yeah. Okay, so they managed to kill every single other thing except for the main ship with Crawl in it, and that crashes into wherever that the sort of star base is. Oh, we didn't really mention it's basically like a snow globe, and it kind of looks like either Halo or Elysium, like that sort of world where
I thought that too. Actually,
you it's like gravity on all sides, but you can see through it. So if you look directly up, you can see people walking on the ceiling, basically, if that makes sense. And this is when the crew learns they happen upon the videos of we finally. It takes until the last 15 minutes of the movie to find the motivation for the bad guy, because at this point the Enterprise crew happens upon these videos that in the same style as Matt Damon in The Martian, selfie videos when he was crash landed. Idris Elba without any makeup on, is just him. And he's, basically complaining, oh, we crash landed and nobody saved us, so I'm going to kill people.
I have something to comment regarding the Idris Elba tape scene.
Yeah.
This was spoiled to me before I saw the movie.
Really?
Literally, I was at a bar with my friend, Margarita's right across the street, and the Star Trek Beyond trailer came on at the bar, and that exact moment was shown.
Oh, yeah.
So I knew that was going to happen, sadly enough. And I was disappointed.
Yeah, I don't know.
But
I
was
feel
hoping
like
it'd be something.
You know what? Honestly, Matt, I think that having been spoiled for you probably made it a better film for you, because I went into the movie not even knowing that he had any context for why he was doing what he was doing at all. So during the whole film, when he's just power hungry for no reason, that's probably why you thought a little bit better of this movie than I did, because
I still thought it was stupid and wasn't explained well. So
yeah, it definitely wasn't explained well at all, and I had no idea what was going on until the last ending of the movie, when it doesn't even really matter anymore. I've lost interest by that point.
Right.
All right. So what happens then? Oh yeah, the artifact has basically turned Idris Elba young enough that he doesn't look like an alien anymore. And then the final battle is between Kirk and Idris Elba in the sort of zero...
Edison is the guy's name.
Edison?
Yeah, that's Idris Elba's character's human name.
Oh, it's his... Oh, yeah, it's his human name. Balthazar Edison. I don't know if that's a character from the original series or not.
I don't know either.
But basically, these two guys, these two captains... dark side and light, have a 0G fist fight, basically, in zero gravity. And I thought this looked really lame. I don't know about you.
I personally thought that this was one of the weaker action scenes in the whole movie myself. I agree with you there. And at one point, I thought the camera made you look at Idris Elba and you're like, oh, is he going to actually sacrifice himself to stop the fight and just realize the error of his ways? Instead, it just becomes more stupid because they continue the fight in.
Yeah. I was not a huge fan of this either. I thought it looked very goofy, very silly. There really wasn't much to the fight. They just sort of struggle a little bit, and then some button is pressed, and they're sucked into space. And Idris Elba's character is sucked into space. He doesn't hold on long enough. And then Kirk is saved last second by Spock and Bones, who have commandeered an enemy ship. So they sort of save him by, flying and blocking his path to the... I don't know how space logic works, but wouldn't you die even if you got close to that open space hole? I
don't know how that works.
I don't think they used gravity-esque, realistic space logic or anything.
Well, they shouldn't either. This is a This is science fiction.
Well,
like,
there's a certain level of reality.
realism.
Like you can't just completely abandon all like things that would be dangerous. It's like I don't know, but whatever. It wasn't the biggest problem with that scene anyway.
No.
So that's basically the end of the film. I mean, they killed the enemy. He goes out into space and then he's like disintegrates in space because of some black cloud thing, I think. And then we get like the sort of epilogue where, all these things that weren't even developed at all throughout the whole movie are now wrapped up. Like Uhura and Spock don't talk once throughout the whole film except at the very beginning, and
at the very end.
And at the very end. But at the very beginning they're fighting, and at the end they made up, even though they didn't talk once between those two interactions. So I just thought that was really like lazy and pointless. Like, and then Spock looks through some old photographs, and this was kind of random, but he looks longingly at a picture of the original series crew. And I guess that I don't know why he did that. He just kind of looks longingly at it. I mean, obviously mourning the old Spock, but I don't know what function that served in the film other than to remind us, oh, that was that family, and now we have a new family or something.
I viewed that scene actually as he's like, I see this is what we could become.
Yeah.
And this is what we could become.
We could become if we had a better script and a better director, maybe.
Probably,
but yeah. That's not to say the original series is some masterpiece or anything. I mean, but
I didn't watch it, so I want to know.
Yeah, I mean, there are some real clunkers in the original series, but the one thing that was constant was that family dynamic. And then Kirk turns down his admiral position because what's the fun in that? He wants to be able to fly the Enterprise and go on adventures, and he realizes even though he almost died, it's like, oh yeah, that's what I liked, is almost dying every day on the job. And then Spock has a surprise birthday party, and J-Law is now, Scotty and Kirk pulled some strings, and now she's a member of the Starfleet, group or whatever now. So
the Academy.
Yeah, so basically she'll be in future movies. That's basically all that.
Which is good.
Which is good because she was one of the best parts of this movie. And then they also all look longingly at the Starship Enterprise being rebuilt, and it's sort of in that fast forward style. I don't know what you would call that.
Yeah, it's fast forward style.
Yeah. So that's the whole movie. We just described the whole movie. It doesn't even seem like that much happened talking about it again.
Didn't.
So I guess what were your overall thoughts on how this movie ended, and also how do you feel about going forward with a sequel, and do you think Justin Lin should come back?
As I mentioned earlier to you, in our non-spoiler section, I think Justin Lin needs to be let go. Just for the as much as I liked what him and Peg did, I preferred what JJ and Orky and Kurtzman did much better. And I liked the ending of the movie. I thought it was a very nice, like, oh, let's get ready for the next adventure kind of ending.
Yeah.
It sets it up well for the next one. And I don't know if you've read up on what the fourth one's going to be about.
No.
But Chris Hemsworth is coming back as Kirk's dad.
I thought you said, but he's dead.
It's gonna be some time travel story.
Oh, just the fact that he's dead, that they're gonna come up with, now that Chris Hemsworth is a star, they're gonna come up with some really dumb thing, just like they did in the second movie where they invented some completely crazy thing to bring people back to life and time travel. They're gonna do the same crappy logic again. No, why, Matt?
Well, I'm just curious to see how they're going to handle it the next movie. I agree it's kind of a gimmick to bring Chris Hemsworth in because he is a big star now. Everyone knows who he is now. But the ending itself set itself up for a new adventure. But I don't think Justin Lin should come back at all because he's busy with Space Jam 2 next and a few other movies.
Space Jam 2?
With LeBron James.
Oh.
I agree. That's a bad idea. But what the studio should consider for Justin Lin, because he has a great eye for visual effects and a great eye for action scenes and character moments. As I mentioned in the non-spoiler section, they should fire Colin Trevorrow.
Stop,
and put
Matt. You shouldn't wish people to be fired. Let's all be positive and not wish.
Well, I'll say it nicer. They should let go of Colin Trevorrow and replace him with Justin Lin for episode 9.
I think that's just a nice way of saying fire him.
Well, it is a nice way of saying fire him, but you told me earlier you don't want me to wish people being fired. But here's the thing. I was never a fan of Colin Trevorrow as a choice for episode 9 from the get-go. Especially, as much as I thought Jurassic World was fun, he didn't bring the Jurassic Park world as well as Justin Lin did to the Star Trek world.
Even though I didn't like Jurassic World that much either, I would actually disagree. But so I'm so on it. It seems like you actually thought this was really good.
I thought it was good. It's not going to be in my top 10 like Into Darkness or the 2009 Star Trek would be, but it's a fun movie. Despite
getting hit in the head with candy.
Oh yeah, getting hit with candy was not a good thing at all. But other than that, like, it has obvious problems, like Carol, aka Alice Eve, not being mentioned at all, and the villain is pointless. I thought I didn't understand what his motive was and how he was able to be an alien and be human again. But other than that, it's a fun movie. It's a solid B for me.
Yeah, I'm not that thrilled with it, but we're different people.
Right.
I'm Spock, you're Bones,
Kirk.
I guess, or Kirk, or whoever. All right.
Yeah.
So
I'll be Jayla.
yeah, you can be Jay. Yep. It's 2016. You can be whatever you want to be.
Well, I'm gonna listen to Beastie Boys on the way home and just blast it in. We'll see if it disrupts any spaceships.
Hopefully, it doesn't blow up the other cars on the freeway.
No, I hope not.
So, on that note, I guess that about wraps it up for this episode. Stay tuned to find out what we will be reviewing next week. But in the meantime, Matt, did you want to plug yourself in any way? And I mean,
yes.
By that, do you want to share your blog? Okay.
Yes. Check me out on WordPress at VealVision. I actually just posted a wedding video I did for a couple in a local couple. So if you want to check my videos out or check my reviews out, I need to keep up on my reviews, but check my new video out. It's pretty cool. Okay.
And for me, you can find me. My blog is Talking the Talkies with Peter Waters, which you can find at pwatersreviews.blogspot. I think it's either net or com.
Yeah, it's com.
It's com? Okay.
Yes.
Blogspot.com.
And VealVision, WordPress.wordpress.com.
Yes.
For me.
And also you can follow me on Letterboxd, and make sure to like us on Facebook. Remember to like us on Facebook. And also, if you're enjoying our show on iTunes, leave us a review on iTunes because we want to be more visible if possible. And
subscribe to us on iTunes as well.
Yes, subscribe to us on iTunes, and listen to us wherever you listen to podcasts. All right. So next week, if we continue to do this again, we will be dealing with government cover-ups and renegade super spies as we review Paul Greengrass's latest film, Jason Bourne, the fifth Jason Bourne film, and Matt Damon returns, thank God, because Jeremy Renner just couldn't cut it as Bourne.
Yep.
So look out for that in the following week. So.
In the meantime, beam us up, Scotty.
Okay, let's never do that again.